Hello there and welcome to my Arty Corner here on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me. My name's Angela Porter, and I'm also known as Artwyrd, that's W-I-R-D, around social media and the internet. It's my business name as well, so I tend to use it. And I'm best known for adult colouring books, but I do an awful lot of other kinds of art, even if it's not available yet on products and things. I still doubt myself after all this time. But nevertheless, I love to draw, and working with pen is always my favourite thing to do. I struggle with colour and coloured media, or I feel I do, and I much prefer just the simplicity of black and white or working in monochrome with that. But there we are. So thank you very much for joining me. If you've subscribed, I'm eternally grateful to you. If you haven't yet subscribed, you're new here, or perhaps a returning visitor who hasn't, you like what you see, please consider subscribing. It does help this little channel to grow and to be shared with others who may enjoy the same kind of content and find it useful. So thank you so much. And talking about sharing or seeing content, it was very bizarre this morning to see not just once but twice 2 different videos of mine being recommended to me, which I find is very bizarre on behalf of YouTube. But there we are, you know, no rhyme or reason to all of this. So this is the second part of a small series of videos where I am exploring drawing in Zentangle style on vellum, but not with pens, but with a ball stylus. These are the tools that are used for all kinds of things, for paint dotting mandalas, to decorating nails, to embossing paper to put texture in them. Now I know Zentangle did that. I think it was Project Pack 16, I could be wrong, but it's somewhere around there. And so you can bend paper and fold it easily and create indents that colour and so on, chalk and whatever, will settle into or not settle into. So it's quite fun to do. But you can also use them to draw on vellum. But it's not drawing in the way of putting ink down. It creates pressure on the vellum. You work on the back of your piece, and when you press down, it pushes the vellum out on the other side, but it also makes the vellum opaque. And so I struggled getting even brand new jelly roll pens, white jelly roll pens, or any other kinds of gel pens to work on vellum. But this will always work. And something I want to try today, there's a couple of things I'm going to show you. Whether I finish this, I don't know. But I've had some questions in the comments, so I want to try to address those today as well. But you can see this has been under something heavy overnight since yesterday, and it's still pretty much curved. And I most probably can gently manipulate it to flatten out a bit. But unfortunately, I think anything to do with heat and moisture from my hands, you can see, it will go flat. It just needs a few days really underneath something extremely heavy, and it will flatten itself out eventually. This was the other one that I showed you, which I think you can see on the blue background. Putting a dark colour behind really does show the white up, or darker colour. Even this blue will show it up now. Here's the one I did with jelly roll, and you can barely see it because the lines are so fine, so light. But these here, and I must say I quite like the airiness of these spiral patterns here. I think that's a variation of fescue. I think it is fescue. I think so, the tangle pattern. But you see this kind of thing in late medieval manuscripts an awful lot as well. And you can just see a difference in colour here. That's because I used a pale pastel green marker here, and the brown round this outer one as well. These little dots here are actually bronze coloured metallic gel pens, which actually most probably would work well on this. I seem to have no trouble applying this. It's just jelly rolls and me. So one question was, what can you do with them? Well, pretty much anything. You need to have them really flat before you can mount them on anything. But what I've got here is I've got a piece of well, it's all media paper, so it's quite thick cards. I think it's 160, might be more GSM, so it's quite sturdy. And I've just put some distress inks there. And if I lay this on the top and try to get it as flat as I can, you can see that some of these colours come through, which is nice enough, but I'm going to have a look at some darker coloured markers in a moment. But the problem with mounting this to anything is you have to be quite crafty or canny, because if you put any glue or double-sided adhesive on the back, it always shows through. You could use, once it's very flat, you can get sheets of double-sided adhesive, so you can stick this down onto that sheet so the whole back is covered with that adhesive, and then carefully apply it without getting wrinkles on. I've never done that. I don't have any of that here, and it's not something I particularly want to do. My preference almost would be to stitch around the edge, or to use things like, you know, paper fasteners, brads, things like that, or even little buttons, or to disguise where you've added glue with things like, you know, little butterflies that you can buy, the ephemera you can buy, and things like that. You could do something like that. You also could, especially if you've got a die cutting machine, which I do have, and I haven't done this yet, and when I've tried it in the past, I am a mare at getting things centralised and keeping them there. You know, sort of like anything I do just doesn't work out. It always goes wonky. But yeah, so you can do that. Certainly you can turn them into greetings cards. If you create a frame that they sit within and you leave the back open, so you need two pieces of sort of like a frame, if I draw. So you'd need some pieces of paper that are sort of, you know, a fair bit bigger than your vellum. You also need to leave a bigger edge than I have here on the outside edge, because that's going to get stuck underneath the frame. So you'd cut the middle out. You need, so there's nothing here, you'd need two of these, and you create a sandwich of the card frame, vellum, card frame, and then you can glue right round the edge to hold the vellum in place, and right round, you know, round all of the cards to stick them together, and that then would create something that's almost like a window, and that would be lovely as a card. It could be, you know, one of these you could leave, you know, if you have it double length card there, you have the hole here, and you have a second one that size and shape but not the whole length. You can put the vellum in there, and in here is where you could add your greeting, you know. So that would be nice. They would be nice hanging windows, but bear in mind that if you don't use products that are light fast, they will fade quite quickly in sunlight, but they would look beautiful with light going through them. They're very delicate and very airy. In Pergamano, they actually pierce these or cut parts away, so you can actually end up with very lacy vellum. But it's not something I've done. And of course, you use long, thin pieces, you can turn them into bookmarks. In fact, if you were to do that, you can buy plastic bookmark sleeves. So you'd cut the vellum to fit that, decorate it, and then slide the vellum into the bookmark sleeve. And they're quite stiff, and they would protect the vellum, and you would see that laciness and the light through it, and everything, you know, and it would be a functional thing. Of course, you can stick them into your sketchbooks, into journals. I've seen with some what do they call them, junk journals. There seems to be the latest thing or idea is specimen plates, which are meant to be like microscopic plates or slides, specimen slides that you would have to preserve things, you know, scientifically, going back in the day, back to when we had naturalists and what do they call them, antiquarians instead of archaeologists and botanists, or biologists and zoologists and so on. And you'd have a frame round the specimen in the middle, so you were able to view it easily through a microscope or through a hand lens, and it would preserve it between two pieces of glass, just like modern microscope slides, but on a bigger scale. So that would work quite nicely as a decorative element. I wouldn't use it for pockets or tucks because the vellum could pick up oils from skin and so on, but I'm not an expert on that kind of journaling, but certainly they could be used that way. And you could put them on the front of a book if you use a frame round it, quite a thick one, so they're set back. So anything you think you can do with these, you most probably could. So I've just thrown the wrong one away. So this is the one I'm working on, which has no colour in it. But hang on, which way round? I'm just checking. Right, yeah, that is the front. Remember I said you can feel which is the front because the patterns are slightly raised and they're also more opaque. So if I look at it this way, they're quite more translucent. This is the back where I've been embossing on, whereas the other side, they're more opaque. Well, how that works, don't ask me. I'm sure there must be something scientific about it, but I don't know is the answer. So the colours do show through here. So using coloured paper, darker coloured would mean that it would show through even more. I've done this fairly light because I didn't know. Okay, so on to alcohol markers. Let me get a set out so I can pick some out. I'm going to look for a nice green. I'm just popping these behind me. Now these I've just dug out the Ohuhus because they're to hand. And I'm looking for a nice green. I think that olive green. Yeah, not so sure. Let me have a look at the other greens we've got. I do tend towards green greys, but we're not going to use that. Oh, the chartreuse is nice. So is the bronze green. I'll try the chartreuse and then the bronze. First find glasses so I can see what I'm looking for. I've got chartreuse and then I wanted the bronze green. They're side by side. How brilliant is that? Guess what? It's a colour combination I use an awful lot. The lovely thing about colouring vellum is you colour on the back, not the front. And it doesn't matter if you're not too neat about colouring. They will even out the diffusive nature of the vellum evens out your colouring for you. You may need to work into the little areas where you've got some indentations. And the vellum doesn't absorb the alcohol ink like paper does. So there is a lot of puddling going on the surface, but it will dry in the way that, you know, Sharpies dry on metal and so on. So I'm just going to finish doing this quite quickly. It's a pain when it's not flat, and this is curled considerably because I added a fair amount of the embossing on here this morning. Now I'm going to go around here. And anything you do, or you would normally do, I've just gone outside the lines there, which is not good. It's okay though, because this is a test piece really, rather than anything else. And I am being really, really quick with this. I'm getting to that jelly roll pen and I know that the jelly roll won't be affected by alcohol markers because I've worked with them in this, not on vellum before, but with alcohol markers over the top. So this is a bit splotchy in places. I can go back and fill in my splotchy bits as I see them. And I can check and look on the other side as well. And you can see how that shows through. I've missed a bit down there. Okay. That's good enough for me for now. And if I put that on, this is just plain white card, and I pop that on here, you can see that colour really shows through now. And some of the patchiness is showing through, but it's not too shabby really. And of course I did it very quickly. Interestingly, even though the jelly roll hasn't disappeared, it's not showing through with this. So it's still there, it hasn't moved, it hasn't been dissolved or anything. What I could do, because is this dried? Yeah, it's dried. And it actually gives a very glossy kind of feel to it. But what I can do is in some places I am just going to, as I would normally, try to see what the patterns are here and where these areas start. Just putting some shadow in, as we would do. And I will pick my other one up and I will blend this colour out just a little bit, because it will blend beautifully on this, because it doesn't sink in. And so what you do is you reactivate the ink with the lighter one again. And then you can see where I've added very subtle shadow just up here, hopefully. See? It's not very clear, but it's very bright sunshine. I've still got my windows open and or curtains open because there's a lovely breeze coming through. But that might help. Okay, so, but all the colouring's done on the back, because as you can see on the back, the alcohol marker will cover over the white, the embossed areas, and they almost disappear on the back, but on the front the white remains, and that's what we want to give it that lacy feel. So darker colours are far better than paler colours with this. Okay, now there was something else I wanted to try today with you. I just need to go and find another piece of vellum, which is in a little box I'm using that has both pens and goodness knows what else in. I hope it's in here. Otherwise, I've put it somewhere too safe, never to be found again, which is always a possibility with me. Oops, as I throw a pen on the floor. Lots of cards, lots of jelly roll. Nope. Don't know where I've put it then. It's not in here. Just double and triple check just in case I've popped it. Nope. Oh, what have I done with that now? Okay. Bear with me a moment because it hasn't gone far. I did have a bit of a tidy up. But tidy ups mean that things don't... Ah, there's a piece. Look at that. Oh, there's lots of pieces. Job's good. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to try. Oh. Right, okay. There we go. All right, so got my little test piece here, which I was showing yesterday. My little, it's 2.5 inches, this one, by 2.5 inches. When I cut an A4 piece of paper up for paper tiles, I tried to get as much out of it as I can. And even if the pieces get small, I think I had a 2.5 inch and a 2 inch piece, as well as some 3.5 inch pieces and 4.5 inch square. So they're fun. Okay, I have got here some metallic gel pens. These are Uniball Signos. They're brand new. I've bought them for a black journal that I have. And what I'm going to do with these, I'm going to choose a colour. I've picked the red. And on the front of this, I'm going to draw my design with the metallic colour. I don't know why these draw on the vellum so much more easily than the jelly rolls, but they do. So their other Signo gel pens will work beautifully as well. And there is a white one in that. Well, I say they'll work beautifully, I haven't tried them. So I've got these here, and I also have, I'm going to put a couple of dots up there and perhaps a couple around there. So I've done that one. I also want to do something similar with a black pen. These are going to take a little while to dry before I can do anything. So let me do something very similar. when you handle vellum, it can become a bit tricksy if you get your, you know, the natural oils from your skin on there. So, but not exactly the same motif, but the same kind of idea. And yeah, I'm just using the Uniball Signos. Like that, so that'll be quite nice. This is quite an old one. I've been slowly wrecking it, drawing in my sketchbook in the middle of the night and this morning. Yeah. Autumn comes and the hot flushes start again. I'm of that age, it seems. Sort of on and off it seems to be, but there we are. So I just check that. That seems to be, that's dry now. It's not quite dry. I've got some lovely pinky stuff on the end of my finger, but it's dry enough, it hasn't smeared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this over. I've got my ball tool here. I'm going to use a finer ball tool than I did yesterday. I'm going to use, no, which one's the finer end? That's the finer end. They're about the same size actually, and I'm just going to trace over where I put the pink metallic gel pen. So I am doing this on the reverse side, on the back side. I don't think it matters too much if you miss some of it, or if you get a white line round it. We'll soon see, because I'm no expert on this, but I was thinking this morning, and it's always a dangerous thing for me to think about things to try, because sometimes my ideas work out, but mostly you think, why did you think that, Angela? And then I think, well, you've got to try things out to know what's what. These are all gel pens, so I'm just going to indent these as well. And what they do is they give some volume then to these lines. So I've done that one. And you can see, even though I've got some white on the inside edge there, this has actually become quite dimensional. It feels that way. And the white, the opacity, the white opacity underneath it makes sure that this colour really stands out. Now, if that bothers me, I can always go back and use the white gel pen to darken, oh, not the white gel pen, the pink, metallic pink one, to darken that up. Let me have a look a moment. Okay. That's the smallest, but it's not small enough for me for this. So here comes all the other ends. That one's a bit too on the fine side, I think. They do have a habit of getting stuck, the blighters, and I don't know why. Probably have to go the other end. Excuse me a moment while I fiddle with this. This is the only disadvantage of this. This system of storage, and part of me thinks, oh, for goodness sakes. Oop, there's another one, there's one there. They were all the big ones. So I've got the finest, the next finest one there. That one is way too small, that's the problem. Because that one will, I will swap it out for this one. Can I? No, I can't, because that's one of the big ended ones. So you can see they've got different sized ends. So I'm not sure whether they go in. No, we'll find out. Hopefully they will fit either end. Should be great. Actually they do, which is fabulous. Right, let me just pop these somewhere safe. Out the way. Oop. See what's going to happen if I'm not careful. I'm going to end up with these lost. Okay, not so keen on such a fine ball because it's a lot easier to break through the vellum. But it may do a better job of tracing over the black, the finer black lines, perhaps. So even if I use the same pressure with this as I do the other tool, you know, the bigger balls, the pressure on the tip is going to be greater, because pressure is about force over, you know, force spread over area. So I've got a smaller area for the same force, same pressure being put over it, so it will create a greater force to push through the paper. You are science. So I'm just going to have a look here. I've got another little one there. And again, that's made that black that much darker as well, because the paper is now more opaque. If I draw on next door to it with the pen again, as that dries, it will fade away a little bit. And over here, very carefully, I can use this just to run along the edge of this, just to hide that white. Hopefully, it's going to behave itself for me. It may not. It doesn't seem to be. Oh, it is. It's just very, very subtle. So not all, you've got to be careful, because you've got to get the ball to contact the vellum. So it is a bit of a potch if you want to get rid of the white, but if you're happy with the white, then knowing that we're going to be putting some colour behind, those whites could actually form really lovely highlights. So I hope that's answered some questions here today. I really do, because I don't want people to go away, you know, I have questions asked and I don't always have the answers myself. I have to try things out. You can see the colours still show through there. These would actually be so lovely doing a frame on this and then having some tangling underneath. So for example, if these were part of the frame, say for this, because I haven't got anything there, then this becomes quite ghostly and then the frame will be more apparent. Or you could cut a hole in the frame, I guess, pierce and cut out. All sorts of things to do. So I should pop those to one side and just let them do what they're going to do. Okay, pop those back before I lose those. And I think I'll just do a bit more of this with you, because it'd be nice to get this done so that I can then over the coming days do some other stuff with you while this is flattening out somewhere, chilling out, relaxing. And that is the term for it, it's to let the vellum relax again once you've done this. I'm just checking, I'm doing that on the wrong side, as usual. But this is such a different way of doing Zentangle. Of course, you can always clip these into journals, sketchbooks with paper clips, or, you know, similar things, or even a staple if you don't mind putting a hole in the edge, if you leave an area for a staple, or, you know, in the corners, sort of like the frame you have has got bites out of it like this, so semicircular bites, and then you use that as a place to fix these in. You can get you can either get something, oh, what they called, Stickles are the Ranger version sort of, but I think it's Tonic Studios and lots of other craft companies do them, and they're little bottles of liquid, and when you put them down they can create like enamel dots. You can buy them that stick on. So if you use just a tiny amount of glue in a corner, then you could use these enamel dots on the top to disguise the glue. as well. So, and I know I don't have any of them. Or, you know, you can get this, like the stick-on diamantes and gems and things like that. I'd put some glue underneath there though, some strong glue, just to make sure they stick in place, because vellum is a tricky surface to get to adhere to anything. So it's lovely, but it is a tricky medium to use. If you remember, this was my original line here, this S shape that I'm tracing round. And I'm doing sort of, I guess it's sort of Senna, or Sena, S-C-E-N-A, the tangle pattern there. But this is becoming very much a variation on that. It's quite different in the way that I'm approaching it, because Senna traditionally is just straight lines. Now I'm beginning to change the direction of the lines here so that I can get some interest in them. And I'm going to carry on with perhaps a couple of these here, just to carry on this particular line here, and I will go and do what I can with the edge. Oh, there's something else I want to show you with the one that I've alcohol inked, hopefully. Okay, so let's go back to this. Here, instead of drawing circles, I'm going, you know, open circles, I'm going to use this to create white circles that will have dimension. So anything you can draw, Zentangle or doodly, you can do on vellum with the tools. And you do have to be patient with the paper, the vellum curling as you're doing this. And you do have to be patient before you add colour and remember which side to work on and so on. And I also think you have to work on a bigger scale, because vellum, once it's been embossed like this, becomes more fragile. If you think about it, you're actually making the vellum thinner here as well as more opaque, and that adds that element of fragility to it. But you can use, you know, sharp tools to pierce this, to make patterns of piercings, which I think you do from the front, otherwise you get a little bit sticking up. And you can even then cut along these piercings to leave pretty shaped edges, almost lacy edges. You need very fine-nosed scissors to do that, but it is possible. It's not something I've done because my skills with scissors are not brilliant. I'm left-handed with them, but I can't actually get on with left-handed scissors because I've only ever used right-handed ones. And with right-handed ones, it's really difficult to see where you're cutting if you're left-handed. I'm also just not very good at it. I just don't have the skill to do that. And no matter how much practicing goes on, I just never seem to get any better at it. I'm better with a craft knife, but that has its own dangers for clumsy me. It's the danger of me cutting myself badly is always there. I should get some chainmail gloves to wear while I'm using craft knives. And that would make it impossible to work with them, probably. So just like drawing with pen on paper, this can build up really quickly. And I can put patterns in there. I mean, I've got some lovely open spaces here, and I've got this finer point. So in here, I'm just going to put some of the zigzag, you know, the straight edge version of Shattuck, or Shaddock. It always sounds like Shaddock is said, but it's spelt Shattuck, so I don't know how to say it quite, being a Brit. So that looks, here you are. With this finer tool, it's easy to get these lovely fine patterns in. I could even go back to this crescent moon here and add some fine lines in the second out, the middle arch of each of them, just to add some interest. So you think of these as pens, and you just need different thicknesses of pens. This is the O1 version, although it's not as fine as an O1 pen. But in terms of pergamano or parchment craft or Zentangling on vellum, it works. You can see there. Actually works really nicely. So I've got to this point now where if I hold this way, I think we can see that it's almost like I've got the top of a C here. And so I think I'm going to abandon the centering. Centering. I've just created a verb based on, was it a verb or an adverb? I'm always confused about grammar. So instead of centering, continuing in a centre fashion, I'm just going to start doing lovely things like spirals and what have you here. And I may actually not complete all of this, but perhaps do a different kind of filling pattern up here, or some of these lovely, as I have just been drawing on the fronts. If you ever do that, all you need to do is to go to the reverse, use the same size tool that you used, and just trace over those lines and the work you've done, and it will pop it out the other way. It does make the vellum extra fragile, but it does solve that little problem. So, and of course, because I'm chopsing, I'm not paying as much attention as I should. So there's one very exuberant one. You see, I often will double back on the line I've drawn just to add that extra bit of embossing pressure and so on, and it just works. So I am beginning to have some sprays of spirals going on here. And this is going to be a little bit different. It's almost like the side of an oak leaf attached to this particular one. And then I will do something similar here. So if you've not seen that before, you now have. It's a kind of thing that's used on medieval manuscript illumination and so on quite often, the later medieval, rather than the Book of Kells and Lindisfarne Chronicles, which are much earlier. Anglo-Saxonish, late Anglo-Saxon, I think. What used to be called the Dark Ages, early medieval, I think is the correct term now. I could be wrong, mind you. It seems to change fairly frequently. And of course that relates to British history and some European as well. So I'm having fun with these spirals, that's for sure. Spirals are just so lovely, and they've fascinated humanity since humans started to draw or create patterns, however they did, whether it was drawing with sticks in the sand or the beautiful cave paintings from prehistoric times, or carved rock. Just something so lovely about it. And of course you find them so much in nature as well. Think about filled up, curled up ferns, furled ferns. That was some nice alliteration. Yeah, I like alliteration. The Anglo-Saxons and also the Norse of that time, they rhymed by alliteration rather than by the sounds at the end of words. So it was the sounds at the beginning of words that were the rhymes then. But I do love a bit of good alliteration, for sure. And there's something lovely about it. It has a lovely, lovely rhythm. Sometimes when poems rhyme at the end, it sometimes feels almost contrived or quite sing-songy. Perhaps that's just my perception from my childhood school days. But there's something quite robust about alliteration that I like. Now, don't, if you're a poet, don't come at me with that. I've said I could be wrong. Doesn't mean that I don't like poetry that rhymes. Far from it. I prefer more prosaic poetry, I think. It's more like prose. But I do particularly like poetry that uses different ways of achieving a feeling or evoking something by the sounds of words or the rhythm of words, the way they're put together in a different way, rather than just rhyming. I'm just adding some dots here as if we've got some water spraying out from these central parts, like this, just to carry this along. And I actually think I may be more or less done with this. Just pierced a hole there nearly, pressing too hard in my eagerness. So I am just popping some extra ones there, and I think I might do the same here. And I do need something here. I don't have many of those, do I? So I'm looking at where can I fit something like that in. They don't have to start at the bottom of a leaf. They can be anywhere along it, or for, you know, one of our spirals, but it's quite nice to have a couple more around to show that it is deliberate, not accidental. Oh, that's how I think anyway. It doesn't have to be everywhere because I'm not creating a repeating pattern here. I'm just creating a pattern. So if I turn this over, you can see up here I need something up in this corner. But you can see how bright and white those lines are and how delicate they are. Okay, up in this corner I'm going to follow this line. I'm going to have that rather exuberant spiral going on here. I'm going to add that little bit of a leaf there. And perhaps here I'll put some dots around the end, just to add those dots. Just on that. Sometimes just these little things just help to contribute towards the whole feeling of it. Now there's a lot more work I can do to this. I've started to add patterns in these sections, but what I will do is I will do those once this is flattened because it is becoming a bit of a pain. But I think you can see what's happening here. If I use this to go underneath, you can see paler colours and the pattern will still show through, but it's better on something darker. And I did say I wanted to try something out with this before I leave you. So this is the front side. On the back, I want to see if I can still add some highlights. Highlights are done by gently flicking the stylus in areas where you want a softer white. So you're gradually increasing in the centre, hopefully, where the lighter areas will be. And there, can you see I've put highlight on this leaf? I'll put it there. Some highlights. I'll do some on this side as well. So you don't need to use jelly roll pens or anything like that to add the highlights. Not such a good job there, but you get the idea. And of course I can do the same on the other drawing for the highlights where I want them. The better pens to use for the background here are the water-based markers like Tombows, or any kind of the real brush pens from Zig. The Carin markers will be fine. Anything similar would work, or felt pens. They do sink into the paper a little bit, unlike alcohol markers. Some like to end up with a dodgy ball here that will need a bit of cleaning. So if I just do a bit more here, it really is about not using too much pressure, but building the intensity of the highlight up to the place where you would like it to be, and remembering that the edges need to be a little bit more feathered. It's like this. I could do with a bit more on the thicker one there. This has proven to be a really good testing place for different techniques. You can see here, this is where I've used the stylus from the other side to push out white, and here I haven't. You can just see the difference that makes. So I hope this is giving you some ideas of what you can do and how you can work with vellum. I'm not sure of the weight of this vellum. Art by Me did ask. I've got to look it up, so I'll reply to you in the comments section. But I hope you found this interesting. It's something that you might consider having a go at some point. But you don't have to rush out and buy these things. I'm just sharing this with you because Zentangle themselves have been using vellum, and it just sparked off my memory of working on vellum or trying this kind of thing out. And I'm quite keen to explore it a bit more. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop drawing on paper, because this is quite a long-winded process after all. You get so far and then you end up with a very curly piece of paper that you've got to put somewhere to flatten out, which I will do. They will both be going under some very heavy books or objects very soon. So all that remains is for me to say thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. So until then, look after yourselves, take care, and above all else, find time to be creative. Bye-bye for now. Bye all. Ta-ta.